Welcome everyone to today's webinar. For any of our regular attendees, you'll notice we're in a different space. So this is our first webinar that we're presenting from our new innovation centre. I can see there's quite a few people online who attended our opening event. I think it was 4 weeks ago now. So they might be familiar with the space. At that point, it was an empty room. So yeah, we're working on developing this space, and in the same way as the rest of our innovation centre, any of our partners who want to use this space for in any capacity, whether it's for training, whether it's for hosting meetings or events, please feel free to do so. At the moment, this room's a bit of a blank canvas, so yeah, please feel free. Just going to text me.
We were just discussing as well for future webinars. I know that we've had quite a lot of attendees in the past when we get a little bit more hands-on, get the products out. This is a big room. We're at one end of it with a camera set up, but we're probably using a third of the space of the room. So we're going to set up another corner for, stuff of walking you through how products get installed on walls, how they get set up. And, a lot of the webinars that we've done in 2025, we'll try and enhance now that we have these greater capabilities as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so guys, we'll make a start. Any latecomers can kind of pick up anyway, so that's not a problem. So welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. As I say, welcome to the very first webinar being presented and hosted from our new innovation centre here in Birmingham. So today's webinar, as you'll all know, is about sustainability and why this has gone from a nice to have to an essential part of the digital signage industry, like many other industries. Myself, I'll be hosting. My name's Thomas Fraser-Bacon. I'm the marketing director. My colleague sitting next to me is Cameron, who's the commercial director. He'll be doing most of the heavy lifting on today's webinar by the presenting. We've got a couple of guest speakers as well, which were announced after we initially announced the webinar. The second of which will be coming on towards the end of the webinar, is Ian Morrish, who's the founder of givingback.tech and also Together for Cinema. So he'll be talking a little bit about that. And the other guest speaker, who I'll hand over to now, is our founder and managing director, Bolly, who most of you, or if not all of you, will be very familiar with already. I asked Bolly to just say a few words about what sustainability means to him personally and how he's kind of imprinted that onto the business. So Bolly, over to you.
Hello, everyone. First one, thank you very much for joining us. When Tom and Cameron asked me to say a few words about greener screen sustainability, I really reflect on my personal journey and also as a founder of OC Technologies. So many of them don't know. You only know probably I'm Chinese, but give a little bit of background. I grew up in a very farmer village outside Beijing in China. And my parents grow the veggies and also grow the fruit. So I grew up in a very wild green village. So green always means a lot to me. So I love anything, flora, grass, trees. Really, it's nature. This is nature of me. And my mom, when I was a very young age, she also runs a small recycling station. So our villagers has any waste from the steel to the beer bottles, plastic, milk bottles, even the papers. So they all sent to my mom's station. My mom sorted them to different category and then sent them to the bigger recycling company. So obviously she makes small amount of money for that and feed our family. But so this green, this recycling, I grew up with that. And when Tom said, okay, think about what that means to me. And I really think that I grew up with this recycling sustainability environment. When I go through all my college life and my work, and I keep that. So today I just quickly show you a few papers. This is on my desk daily. So you can see that we use double times. It's all these papers. It's one by one. We use them for double-sided. We taught our teams, our colleagues that if you don't need to print, please don't print. If you print paper, please use them twice. So if we receive some paper, for example, from the bank, like this one from our bank, RBS, it's only one page. We said we don't waste that. We use our second one, another side. So this is not only me, this is my colleagues through that journey with me together. This really means a lot. So this is really personal things. But I think if everyone, you care about resources, you care about our Earth, and our Earth will be much, much more beautiful. So when I create OC Technologies, since day one, when we create products, we want our products to be durable. So you don't want them after a few years, you bin it. We want them last forever, hopefully. So now, even 17 years ago, the screen we produced, they are still in action. This is unbelievable. And if anything come back, the packages, we reuse them, we try to make them greener rather than order this new package again. So many things. And when we design the products, we also need to think about how much power you need to consume. We try to reduce that to minimal you can use. So many things is in here. I would like to share. Probably if you really give me time, I can share that whole webinar. But now I just want to hand over to Tom and Cameron. They will tell you how do we handle sustainability in here. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Bolly. I appreciate that. I'm really glad Bolly used the example of using scrap paper, because since I joined the business almost 16 years ago, I can say hand on heart, I don't think I've ever seen Bolly even with a notepad. He just uses not only scrap paper, but the other side of scrap paper. And yeah, so the reason I wanted Bolly to kind of talk about that is some of the things we're going to be talking about in today's webinar are reflective of a much, much larger company. But even when it was just, the 5 of us in the early days back in 2010, this is at the heart of everything we've always done. Our general practices, not just our products, not just our packaging, all the things we're going to be covering today, but really at the heart of everything that we do, really. So yeah, I just thank you, Bolly, for saying those words. Right, I'm going to hand over to Cameron now.
Thanks, Tom. So, just to jump in a little bit, to a lesser degree than for instance for Bolly, obviously having founded the company, I've been with Allseed for just under a decade now, and in the industry for just under a decade. So I've seen as things have changed, and as the impact of digital signage on the environment has become more of a hot topic, and that's become more of what we need to perform to in order to kind of sustain and fulfill these projects. So just looking at the environmental impact of digital signage and how that impacts individual business ESG targets. That impacts us and our own ESG targets, but also yourselves as our partners, our suppliers, as it goes down the chain. Everyone that works together, everyone's kind of looking towards ESG targets and trying to reduce carbon footprint and other impacts on the environment in general. Customer expectations, I think in the past several years, that's probably the biggest change that I've seen, is that it's been less, you're working through a project with someone who's particularly environmentally conscious. It's now become a tick box for any medium to large company is, oh no, you need to have these in place or we cannot complete this project with you. So it's become something that's an absolute requirement. And linked into that are procurement requirements. So as many of you know, we've talked about this in some of our major webinars, so especially the end of year webinar, where we talk about the big projects. Over the past few years, Allseed has conducted some very large projects, some of the largest in the history of the company. And I will say the documentation associated with those projects in terms of ESG, in terms of overall environmental, registration, which we'll talk about in a moment, that has become a given. And not a small given. Like when we're talking about tenders, many more tenders are coming up where they have specific requirements in terms of environmental sustainability. These are things that are no longer, are you going for the environmental project? It's no, every project is having some form of requirement, and it's typically quite a major one. It's like I was saying on the slide, it's no longer an optional, you have to do it or you're not going to be winning any of these major projects.
Just before we carry on, actually, just one point on that. Something I've mentioned a few times in previous webinars. These kind of things in terms of winning major projects, as Cameron said, they're not just viable for large integrators, companies with a lot of resources. Over the last several years, we've completed or helped our partners to complete some quite large scale projects. And some of those partners, some of those integrators or resellers are very small companies, 3 people or less. So the reason I mention that is I don't want certain people on the call to think, I'm a small company, that doesn't really matter to me. I'm not going after these big projects. You can still win them because we've seen several cases over the last few years of big brands, large rollouts working with relatively small integrators and resellers.
Absolutely, yeah. And just kind of getting into that point, we want to talk a little bit more about, obviously, thank you all for joining the webinar, but what really matters to you is how does this actually impact your business and how does this help you? Why is it worth talking about? The big thing that we've just been talking about is, of course, winning more tenders. So from all the tenders that partners have passed to me to look at and contribute towards, I would say over the past 3 years, I've not seen a single tender that didn't have some substantial requirements in terms of sustainability and environmental impact. One of the most core to that being, okay, how long is this screen going to last? And what do we do when it comes to the end of its life? We'll get into that in a moment, but these are requirements that you have to adhere to or you're going to struggle. And this is also something where, in terms of competition on the market, in terms of other manufacturers from various kind of sectors of the globe, there are ones that are going to struggle significantly more than we are. We've had this focus on from the inception of Aldersley. We've had a focus on sustainability, on our environmental impact, and so we are prepared to answer these questions, whereas there may be factories globally which don't really have that focus and are now playing catch up. So we're in quite a strong position when it comes to those tenders. Again, you've also got meeting client sustainability requirements. So that might even be that you've been working with a client for a long time, and then they reach a threshold, maybe they become a slightly larger company, or they have a changeover of management, and suddenly they need to be meeting all of these standards, or in fact, they grow into a new market, maybe they start growing into the European regions, where they have more strict requirements there. So it might be a change from the norm that you've been used to in supplying people already. Strengthening brand reputation is obviously a big part of it as well. We want to make sure that when we're putting Aldersley out to the world, it's known as a brand that cares about the environment, cares about the longevity of our screens, and we're not just in it to make a quick buck and then move on. So that's any of the partners that are on the call that have been with us for a long time will know that that's not the way we work. We'll get into it in a moment, but we have screens that have been out there 14 years and still running. We're not trying to just make a sale and move on. We're looking at the long term of the project, the relationship, and so on. And then also future proofing against regulations. So I mentioned about Europe. There are regulations coming into play in Europe for the requirement of digital signage in certain industries where it's been said, okay, don't use paper. You have to use digital signage because you're typically changing this message frequently. This is not sustainable. You need to move into a more digital option. So it's just preparing for that. That's what's happening in Europe and for our European partners, but you'll see this kind of trickle over into other environments in the UK and others over time as well. This is, looking at it, a common conversation that I've had. I would say this has probably come up in 6 or 7 of the last 10 meetings that I've had where reseller partners have come in, maybe they've brought their end user with them, is the conversation of, oh, we spend such and such amount on print for our windows, for posters displays. It's looking to a commercial advantage now, saying, oh, okay, this is going to pay for itself in a certain amount of time, but also have that environmental impact as well. Another thing to talk about is kind of how traditional signage, or traditional digital signage has moved on. I've seen, as we mentioned, we've got screens out there in the world that are 14 years old. Those are not the most efficient screens we've ever made because the technology wasn't available at the time. LED was not available. Those 14-year-old screens have got cathode ray tube backlights. Those are not efficient. They're not great for the environment. It's what was available to us at the time. Now, as quickly as we could, we moved to LED. In the past, you had short product life cycles, so it was, they weren't lasting very long. A lot of technologies were relatively new to the market, and so it was kind of learning how they could, deal with high heat production, things like window displays. I remember even when I was starting in Aldersley, it was still relatively early for that type of product line where even down to panel manufacturing, it hadn't got it exactly perfectly right. So the longevity of that, you know, window display was probably not going to last 10 years plus, whereas that's significantly changed. Now, excessive packaging waste, that comes into, of course, repeat purchase of the product. If you've got something that's not lasting very long, you have to buy it again and you've got more packaging waste. And then, of course, the e-waste, which we'll get into in a moment. We are re-registered and looking at kind of how we do that in the long term as well. So in linking to that, obviously we talked about how we've historically had a focus, but what are we doing now? What are the goals that we're putting forward? What are the focuses and what work have we already put towards improving our environmental standpoint and our plans for the future? So our new innovation center, if you want to tap over to our video, is something that if you've come to our opening event, you may have already. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
I'll take over for a little bit. So, yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Cameron. Yeah, anyone that's been to our new innovation centre will have obviously seen how beautiful it is, but sustainability has also been a major consideration in the development of our innovation centre. From the earliest stages of planning, a significant amount of thought went into kind of creating the building so that it's not only suitable for our long-term growth, but also more efficient, responsible, and sensitive to the surrounding environment as well. This included everything from reducing day-to-day energy demands and considering the impact on the site and the local wildlife. So some of the things are eco-efficient and eco-conscious design. For example, having very large windows to maximise natural light and reduce reliance on artificial lighting. Obviously, renewable energy through our solar panels on the roof. And also, as I mentioned, careful consideration of the surrounding environment and local wildlife. So yeah, this huge kind of environmental survey was done, and all of that was kind of taken into consideration in the design and the building of the new innovation centre itself.
Excellent. Apologies for the confusion there. We changed some of the order at the last minute and I completely forgot. So just looking a little bit more on some of the stuff that we're doing, one major goal that we've got is in moving our entire vehicle fleet over to electrics. That's something that we hope to have completed very soon. You will have seen that when you visit Allseas offices, we have quite a lot of electric charging available, and many of our staff have taken advantage of that. You'll see a lot of our team have changed their cars over to electric vehicles as the companies allow them to charge for free. That extends to our partners as well. So to you and your customers, as you come, you'll find completely accessible charging points where if you have an electric vehicle, you can top up whilst you're having a meeting with us. Just as a little extra reason to come and see us if you're on the road or in the area. Another thing that we looked at is the overall building and how we're looking at the long-term effects of that. So linked into the vehicle charging, and a reason why we're open to the team charging their cars for free is the solar panels that we have on the roof. You can't see in that photo, actually, they're angled in the opposite direction, but we do have solar, and that's helping us to allow, you know, this constant driving where people visit their customers or we're going out and doing installs and repairs can be completely offset by solar as well. So that can really help us in terms of our overall impact of carbon. But also another thing that we've been really focused on is our new internal ERP system. So this is something that's been worked on for the past 12 to 18 months. And has massively improved our efficiency, but has also allowed us to take a lot of typically paper processes and make them digital. That's meant that warehouse workers are now using digital PDAs for stock picking and preparation of orders, but also in the long term will have an impact on your own efficiency. So right now, this is an internal tool. This is how, when you send a purchase order to your account manager, this is how they process it through so that the warehouse team know what they're shipping to you or to your client. Our long-term plans for that are making it accessible to you. So that means that your invoicing, tracking, and stock availability will all be available via our partner portal. We don't have an exact timeline for that yet, but that is what our team are working on now. So that's the next thing, which will allow it not just to be for our internal processes, which go digital, but also the processes where we interact with yourselves. Those can also be greater digitalized. looking less away from the company itself and also but also the products. And I think that's really what's going to matter to you beyond obviously the tender applications. What's really going to matter to yourselves and to your customers are the products that we're producing. So when it comes down to product design, energy efficiency, the long-term viability of the product, and the overall lifespan are major focuses when we're producing any product. So energy efficient, like I said, the moment that we have more energy efficient technologies available to us, we tend to be capitalizing on them. So long ago, we were making displays with cathode ray tube backlighting because what was available on the market. The moment LED became more commonly available, we jumped on that straight away. And so you'll find that all of our products are illuminated. I'm going to say illuminated by LED because we have LCD displays where the backlight is LED, but then we also have LED displays where the LED is the LED and the actual display bulbs are LED themselves. You'll also find some things that you might not be already aware of is that the cardboard used in our packaging is all already recycled manufacturing. So I mean, it's 70 or 80% of the cardboard used in our packaging is pre-recycled. And then also of the materials that you find in the packaging, all elements of that are recyclable in some way. So that means that people can reuse them as well for moving products. So one thing I've seen is a lot of people using them for exhibitions and reuse of products. You can use them to safely maneuver screens, but also they can be recycled if they're not going to be used in the future. One thing that we have seen, and as efficiency of displays gets better and better, this becomes more of a viable option, is solar powered solutions. The third image you're seeing on your screen right now was actually something we did for an airport, whereas a display that was running entirely via solar. I will say for that was back in the day, so solar panel is very big, but it's just something that we're seeing open up a little bit more. As efficiency grows, it allows us to do things like this. So another thing, looking to that future and going as efficient as we possibly can, a big strive for that is LED. Many of you'll know that we've been pushing into LED in a huge way over the past decade. It's become a major part of what we do. It now occupies over 20% of our annual turnover is coming from LED projects. But as well as that, we're looking at, okay, what's the future of the market? What's the future of the technology space and what can we do in that space? You'll all know that we're not a company that just jumps on the bandwagon of fads of what other people are doing. We like to look at the overall viability in the market, but also look at, is it going to be reliable? Is it something that our partners need? Is it something that our customers need? And also, is it something that meets the financial expectations of Allsea are never seen as, we're not the most expensive product on the market. We never want to do that. So we're always looking at, is this effective? With that, we are currently spending quite a lot of R&D into e-paper technologies. So we're seeing in the market that people are producing concepts of e-paper for digital signage. It's been something that's been talked about for a long time. This is something that our R&D team are working on at the moment for where do we make a splash in the e-paper market for larger e-paper displays. I don't know if Tom, you have any.
Yeah, I did want to add on to that, but before I do, there was just a couple of other points on this topic. In terms of kind of longer product lifespan, for example, when we're going through our R&D process, one of the big considerations is how repairable can we make this product? How modular, how easy. Many manufacturers don't really consider that because obviously they're not looking to help you repair the screens and to maximize the product life cycle, the lifespan, because obviously they want to sell you a new screen. Obviously we're kind of in it for the long haul, if you like. We've seen the bigger picture. So that is one of the considerations when we're going through the R&D process for a new product. How repairable can we make it? How efficiently can we repair it? Even after its warranty period is expired. Also, something that's mentioned on there is the use of recycled materials and components. So many of the plastics and metals within the enclosures and inside the products themselves are made from recycled materials wherever possible. So we are conscious of that as well. And just to expand on the e-paper point that Cameron made. So as all of you are probably aware, e-paper has been around for a long time. And even on the commercial display market, it's been available for years. However, in terms of kind of viability, commercial viability, both in terms of cost and performance, it's only really now getting to a point where it's viable, which is why we've started, it was around 6 months to a year ago, the R&D process on the e-paper side of things. Another good example of that is, which some of you on the webinar today may be aware of. Other brands have these kind of like eco screens. They started kind of coming to market around 2022, 2023, and they have a reflective optical film within the backlight system itself. Basically, it means that the LED backlight is efficient as it possibly can be. But as I mentioned, they've been on the market for a number of years now, and there's a few reasons why, you know, they're not everywhere, why they haven't really taken off. The first being the brightness. Typically, these kind of displays are around 300 to 350 candela. Something we've noticed in recent years is a demand for much higher brightness, especially indoor screens, retail environments, brightly lit ambient areas are requiring much higher brightness, not lower. So that's definitely one of the kind of practical elements why they haven't kind of been popular. Another one is cost. So they're significantly more expensive. So brands who would be most interested in these for their larger rollouts, obviously then, you know, once the cost is factored in, it's considerably more expensive, exponentially more expensive. So they're not very commercially viable. Another one is the cost of ownership. So the saving made on the energy consumption is negligible, it's typically less than the difference in cost between a product that doesn't have a reflective panel and one that does. Also, in terms of reliability and operation, these displays tend not to be 24/7. And again, as many of our partners are already aware, all of our products are 24/7 by design. That's a very conscious decision that we've made, just to increase the lifespan of a product. Even in most cases, they're not being used 24/7, but it obviously expands the lifespan as much as possible. It's been mentioned by Bolly, by Cameron, but we regularly get technical support calls for products that are 10 or more years old, and typically there isn't even a hardware failure. It's just a little bit of support needed, a little bit of finger trouble, maybe, you know, a new member of staff started. Obviously screens well outside the warranty, still running, no problem at all. So really, I guess our focus is on developing solutions that are commercially viable to our partners, not just investing heavily into a product that's not commercially viable for the sake of having an eco screen. I think sustainability really has to, in terms of product design at least, has to work alongside performance, reliability, and as I said, commercial viability as well. A product isn't only sustainable, you know, if it's good for the environment, it needs to deliver a long service life and make commercial sense for both the integrator or reseller and the end user. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context and give a different example of that, really.
So we'll jump in from there. Just to elaborate a little bit on one of the points is packaging innovation. So that's something that we spend quite a lot of time on, as you can imagine. We are shipping a lot of screens, so packaging innovation, you know, a small change makes a big change overall when we're looking at so many screens. So something we're constantly refining. I remember, you know, from when I started, major improvements we've had to make as we ship globally, and how do we improve the packaging, not just for sustainability, but for also making sure the screen gets there in one piece. So that's something that we've put a lot of focusing on. As I've mentioned, you know, using recycled outer packaging, reducing material usage. You'll notice that a lot of our packaging have been slimmed down. So we've managed to use closed cell foam to actually make it higher protection, but in a smaller space. And then one thing you'll see as well is on some ranges where it's common to use many displays together, you may see them packaged together. So for instance, our LCD video wall displays, you'll see them boxed in a 2 screens per box solution, reducing the overall packaging, also making them easier to transport as well. So there's a lot of, you know, the design is not just about the product, it's also about the packaging and how it actually gets to the customer. We're also, that bag that you're showing there, we're looking at working on reusable packaging systems for how we deal with RMA displays. So when something fails with or within or outside of warranty, how do we get it back to us without having to send out new packaging for that unit as well? Just
to expand a little bit on the, you mentioned the video wall displays. I mean, we don't really get many opportunities to talk about this, so I'll use this opportunity, but it sounds, maybe it sounds excessive, but I think the development of that packaging, the R&D was in place for almost a year before we actually use that new packaging. Obviously, we needed to make sure, as Cameron said, it was fully protective. Obviously, it's a very delicate product, it's a very fragile product, but also to reduce the size and the weight. You know, these products are generally shipped in large quantities, so it makes a big difference, really. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that because we don't really get a chance to talk about that kind of stuff normally.
Excellent. We'll step from there into our sustainable operations. So what we're doing in terms of everyday operations to help with the sustainability. So one thing that has been more of a checkbox because we were kind of doing it already is WE compliance. So we're now a WE registered company, making sure that the technical product that we dispose of is disposed of in a safe manner, but also in a way that's as sustainable as possible. So this is something that we've already experienced in the past. So before being officially WE registered, we were using external companies to take away, you know, when we have old screens, as we said, we mentioned screens that are 14 years old, we need to make sure they are a chemical product. It's liquid crystal display. We need to make sure those chemicals are disposed in a safe manner. We were using external companies. We just weren't officially WE registered. We are now WE registered. That's going to help you with tender applications because it means that going up your supply chain, you have that registration. Then also on a manufacturing side from our factory, we have ISO 14001 certified manufacturing facilities. So that just looks at the overall process of how we're actually manufacturing the product and making sure that we're doing that to an agreed standard. And then also looking at the way that we bring in supply and who we choose to as our suppliers to make sure that we're maintaining these standard practices. What I will say is, as you know, the majority of our manufacturing is our own factories, but then also we do partner with companies such as BTEC AV mounts, Ciana video wall controllers, of course, software partners as well. We look at our relationships with them and how they interact with our sustainability model overall too as well.
So yeah, before we take on any kind of new suppliers or partners, we do a full kind of audit, a full review to make sure they adhere to our kind of ethical but also sustainability practices.
Just looking at our factory, I know my colleague Tom visited our factory relatively recently, so got a little bit of footage of some of the production that was taking place over there as well.
So yeah, the sustainability side of things, it's at every level really. You know, from the, as I say, starting obviously at the R&D stage, seeing what raw materials we can use in a sustainable manner, but also, as I mentioned earlier, the repairability of our displays. We're not just trying to make something as necessarily as slim as possible, or you know, as nice looking as possible for that would kind of compromise on the sustainability side of things. So yeah, it's really at every level that sustainability is looked at.
And then looking at that, as we're working in technology, we have to look at a kind of circular economy approach of once a product goes out there, it's not the case of, oh, you've got a 3-year warranty, at the end of that you buy another one. It's how can that product be reused? How can we make sure that it gets a very long lifespan? A huge part of that is our repair team. We're very lucky to have a fantastic repair team on site, and both for our on-site and our off-site teams who have been with the company for a very long time and come up with innovative ways to conduct repairs on things that perhaps we can't get some of the components that we once can. We've expanded our capabilities internally, including the little microscope system, so that we can actually take things apart to a greater degree in the UK rather than to go back to our factory and involving shipping, environmental shipping impacts of taking stuff back to our factories in China. But we typically have an approach of after the 3-year warranty or 5-year if it's extended, we will try to repair anything that's sent to us. So many times we'll see products that are 10 years old, we'll get it back and it just needs a little bit of a tweak and we can get it working again, and then we'll do that, just charge a small amount for the parts and labour and ship that back out. So that means that we can expand on the longevity there as well. And then also on designing the product, we have a focus on the product life cycle. So we're talking about, in designing new products, how we're adding dust filters to our new Elite outdoor range, improving water ingress protection and the overall protection of the panel. So in products like that, some of our newer products where if they were getting to the point of overheating, they'll shut themselves down. These are things that we do to kind of prevent that failure before it happens. And then also get into redistribution of surplus equipment, where I'll hand them to Tom, who's going to.
Yeah, no problem. So there were a couple of points I just wanted to clarify on that as well. For any of our partners that aren't already aware, if you can return a screen to us that's out of warranty, we'll inspect it always free of charge. And as kind of Cameron alluded to, we charge a nominal cost for the parts. We're not using this as a a revenue stream. It's to kind of extend the life of our products as much as we possibly can. We're not using it as a way to kind of make extra money. We're doing it to give the products as long out there as possible. As I mentioned, distribution. It says on the screen here, distribution of surplus equipment via reuse initiatives. So this is things like ex-demo units, damaged screens that potentially we can't sell. Even through clearance, things like that. So for that, we partnered with givingback.tech, and rather than me trying to explain it, I'm going to invite Ian Morris to just say a few words about that initiative. So yeah, over to you, Ian.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Cameron. Firstly, thank you very much for asking me to say a few words. Really appreciate it. I've worked with Allsea in the past, my time when I was at ISE, the ISE show, and they're professional, ethical, very fair, reasonable, and I think the Innovation Centre reflects that as well, that development. So I wish you all the best with that. Just a very quick introduction on myself. I won't get too absorbed by it, but my background is sales. I'm not technical. I worked at CEDIA, I worked at ISE for 13 years. During that time, I met lots of people. I was the main sales guy. And while I was there, I worked these contacts to start something called Together for Cinema, where we worked with the industry to install cinema rooms into children's hospices and other deserving venues in the UK. There's a reason I'm explaining this. As of now, we've installed 61 rooms at a had they been paid for value of 1.6 million. Great delivery to the community and well backed by more so the residential AV market. During that time, it became very, very apparent to me, though, that these charities and these good causes don't have the budgets for sexy AV kit, which we take for granted almost every day. So it got me thinking, and we started to post filter some products from donations to the good causes, about through another £300,000 or £400,000 worth of screens and other items and so on. It just made me think there has to be a better way. Millions of pounds worth of equipment, as we all know, gets sadly dumped into the ground. It gets destroyed, it gets weed, it gets whatever it does, but it has a life, it has a purpose, it still works. So we set up givingback.tech, which in its simplest form it's like a freebie website. You post your product and a beneficiary venue, a charity or community interest company, goes onto the website and says, I'd like that product, you send it to them. Now, this could be your customers, it could be a manufacturer, could be a distributor, it could be a residential or commercial integrator. Whatever products that are available that work can be posted on this site. So basically that's what givingback.tech is. It's giving back to our community things that we take for granted every day that still have a life but are not commercially viable. They're written off probably already through the accountancy system, the accounting of the firm, and they have no commercial value, but they still have a value out in our community. So that's what givingback.tech is. Next slide, please. There's an awful lot of waste. We've covered this. Basically, we all know this. It's effectively a crime that we all accept. I mean that in the nicest way. That's our industry, and great to see Allsea doing so much about sort of bettering their way. So hats off to you and hats off to lots of others. Don't get me wrong. We know that so many people already have lots of initiatives to make a difference. This is not going to change the world, but it's a step in the right direction, and it should have happened years ago. This really should. Next slide, please. So one solution, two powerful impacts. For businesses, hey, look, it supports the ESG goals. We all know about the social conscience we have now. We know about the WE directives. We know about the United Nations 2030 directives and so on. But it helps free up your warehouse space. It could unlock potential tax benefits through the repurposing kit rather than sort of binning it. For charities, wow, the benefits are huge. They do not have the budget for this equipment. I don't need to go into those 5 points, but the benefits are huge. I'll outline 3 cases later on in this, which outline exactly how these products can benefit charities and families going through a tough time. So givingback.tech, next slide please, is, as I say, a very simple, intuitive website. You register as a donor. Takes 2 minutes. You list your equipment. Now you list your equipment by individual product. This is where there's a little bit of a time investment. But if you have 10 of the same product, you can list the product and you put, I have 10 of these, with a maximum request of 2. So the website will hold your hand through this. And if there are any questions, please ask later on. But you would go onto the website, givingback.tech, register as a donor. Then once you're registered, go into your donor section, and then you can start listing your equipment. You can create a new brand. If the brand isn't listed, you can create a new brand. You list maybe some of the problems. It might have a cracked bezel. It might be a speaker with a scratch on it, or whatever it might be. You can list a warranty. No warranty, 2 years warranty, whatever it is. This is a gift. The beneficiaries are not paying for it. So, as I say, you can stipulate almost exactly how what the terms and conditions are. Once the equipment's listed, the beneficiaries can register, but any beneficiary has to be a charity or a community interest company based in the UK. Once they apply to be a beneficiary, we then will check their credentials, make sure that they are a registered charity, check the address and so on. And that's the policing that we can do. We can't go beyond that. We know some items may end up in someone's home. That happens every day anyway. But hopefully that's enough policing to execute enable them to go on and select products. Simple facts are, they go on, they contact you. We drop out at that point. We don't have any product. We don't come back. Once the introduction is initiated, you as the donor would liaise directly with the beneficiary and vice versa. That's it. It's not complicated. There are lots of questions about, well, who would deal with the product's broken and so on. But look, we're not guaranteeing products here. Most of the products will be fine. If someone comes back to you and says, hey, look, my screen's cracked, I'm sure you'll try and help them, or they go back onto the site. That will happen at some point, of course. But if we shift 1,000 products and 950, 960 work well, hey, hats off to our industry. That's a good start. Next slide, please. And then next slide, because I'll explain about impact. 3 very quick examples. Logitech donated a rally minibar to Together for Cinema, and we passed it on to Dougie Mack Children's Hospice, which is in Stoke. And there was a child there who was living in a family who were living with terminal illness, but a very, very rare terminal illness. The child is not with us anymore. And I know they could do this by Teams or by Zoom. Of course they could, but the rally minibar just made it that bit more engaging and comfortable to talk to another family in the north of England whose child had the same terminal illness. Both children are now gone, but enable their families to talk and sort of understand and cradle their awful journey, their challenging journey, just a little bit. Huge impact. That's one story. That rally minibar is probably used 2, 3, 4 times a week by a family in a similar scenario. Next slide, please. Sonos donated speakers to Shooting Star Chase Children's Hospice in Hampton, basically to allow music to easily be played in their bereavement room, the counselling room. I'll read the quote. Our new counselling rooms are now ready to be used. The music creates a calm atmosphere and ensures background noise doesn't disturb any sessions. And that's from Caroline Brentfield, who's the events manager at Shooting Star Chase. Hey, look, we know speakers are 10 a penny, but Sonos gave them the speakers and they were excess. They made a difference. And, when you look at a pair of bookshelf speakers in the back of your office and think, oh, we'll just bin those. Don't. Post them on givingback.tech somewhere for someone, some charity. It might be Save the Hedgehog in Cornwall, whoever it might be. I joke about Save the Hedgehog. We can make a difference. Next slide. Last example, Sony had excess screens. They've been superseded by another model. They donated them to Eleanor Children's Hospice in Gravesend. and they've gone into 3 of the rooms with children with complex conditions, and the children and the families can get onto Netflix, relax without having to go out to the sort of family room. They have their private time. Thank you so much for your generosity and support, which is greatly appreciated. You have no idea what difference this will make and how grateful the families we support will be for your gesture. Your kindness is making a big difference, so thank you from all of us. That was from Sue Piper at Eleanor Hospice. Next slide, please. Basically, these donations make a difference. They make a huge difference. I've recounted 3 stories of 3 donations, hundreds of donations, hundreds of stories per donation. Don't bin it. Post it on givingback.tech. Let it go to a charity. Let it change a family or child's life. At the moment, we're focusing on children and families being cradled at the most challenging time. So children's adult hospices, children's wards in hospitals, respite care centres, and so on. So those products you think, oh, it's just a fag to post it. Please do post it, because the difference you can make genuinely is huge. These charities do not have the budgets, the luxury budgets for AV equipment. They get by. That's what they do. They get by. Care is ultimately the biggest priority. Of course it is. So any donated products make a huge difference. I ask you to talk to your customers, your suppliers. Please spread the word. There are 4 things you can do to help. Spread the word. Let people know about what we're doing. I say we're not going to change the world, but this is a start. It's a start, a responsible start to engage with our community. Donate equipment. Post 5 or 10 products on givingback.tech. We've got about 70 items at the moment. It's not really enough to go to the charities at the moment. We're planning to go out in 2 weeks' time. We need more products. Go on and post 1, do a test product. But 5 to 10 would make a difference. If we had 10 people posting 10 products, that's another 100. We haven't launched yet, just so you know. So this is why there's not much traction at the moment. It is a good thing. Everybody I've spoken to, bar none, has said, what a great idea. Should have happened years ago. Third way you can help shape the platform. Get on there, go on and register as a donor. Tell us what's wrong. Is the posting a product process too difficult? Is it too clunky? Let us know. Let's all work together. This is a non-commercial, non-for-profit organization, givingback.tech and Together for Cinema. We need your help to get this right as it can be, and create that habitual desire to post products on this site. We know it's not going to happen overnight. We really do. And it will take a lot more work. Leads me on to become a partner. Not the great big Bob Geldof cry for help, but we need funding. We don't need a lot of funding, but we need a little bit of money just to maintain the website. One major investment we have that will come up soon. I know I'm going on. I will stop very soon. Sorry, guys. We need an API. I think, an automatic system for posting products. So, for example, Midwich have 8,500 products in their warehouse that are probably excess. They can't post them one by one. Absolutely no way. They've posted 40 so far. So, an API costs about 6,000 to 10,000. We don't have that money available to us now. Create the website. We need some partners. Anybody you think can help, please let me know. Please contact me. My email address, email address is ian@togetherforcinema.co.uk. Please do email me if you know anyone who can help, or you want to help in any way develop givingback.tech. That's ian@togetherforcinema.co.uk. Thank you. Become a partner. Help shape this. Let's work together to make this happen. Crestron are our founding partners. Thank you to Crestron, Midwich have engaged with us, and we're in good shape to go forward. We just now need the traction from the industry. Thank you all very, very much indeed for listening. Thank you all, Tom, for asking me to spend 5 or 10 or 12 minutes, whatever it is. I'm very grateful. And if you have any questions, please do let me know. But thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ian. Really appreciate that. I just want to say another quick few words about that. I mean, Ian, you and I have known each other for around 10 years now. We've always gotten on, but the work that you've done since leaving ISE, it's more than just admirable. It's inspirational. It really is. And I know that obviously parts of that presentation kind of tug on the heartstrings a little bit, and need to bring it back to business and sustainability and all that kind of stuff. But just from a personal level, Ian, I mean, I just want to say thank you really for all the work you're doing for the industry and moving it in the right direction. And yeah, hopefully we can help support you guys in every way possible to really kind of get this off the ground.
Thank you, Tom. No, I appreciate it. I always enjoy working with you when I was at ISE, and yeah, no, I appreciate your kind words. But as I said to you earlier before we started, it is my job. The industry do pay me now to do this. I'm full time. I went full time in 21 on this, and we became a CIC in 2023. So we formalised it. I'm not comfortable getting paid, but somebody has to, as it wouldn't happen. But yeah, thank you for your kind words.
Thanks, Ian. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Tom. I mean, just to wrap things up, I know we've run to nearly an hour of doing the full work of the webinar, so we just want to wrap things up and kind of frame this into how it's useful to you guys as our partners. So many of these things are things that I already said towards the start of the slide, but just looking at what we've talked about today, hopefully what we have and what we can expand upon as you need for tenders is that we can help you to more easily meet your own ESG requirements, but also that of your customers. A big part is being stronger in your tender responses. This is something that as a company we've been talking about for the past couple of years, in how do we support our partners to become even stronger in these tender responses. Where we've helped, we've often managed to make a success in tender responses, just from the strong position that we come in from, experience in the industry, experience in specific markets, but also in terms of our ESG goals and in terms of our sustainability. Product sustainability is something we're always going to be focused on, something we're going to considerably expand. You'll see, over the past 18 months, you will have seen the biggest upgrades in All-C products in over a decade. And that's not something that's slowing down. That's something that is at a very quick pace, the quickest pace we've ever seen. Historically, we've been releasing 3 to 5 new products per year. This past year, it's been in the tens of products. I don't even know what the number is, because literally every week, product development tell me a new product arrives. So it's something that we're constantly flowing and constantly upgrading with sustainability in mind as well. But then also working on that cost of ownership. So we're always going to try and increase the longevity of products as much as we can. Our commitment to LED products is a big part of that. You'll see that LCD products have a great lifespan, typically around 70,000 hours. LEDs even bigger than that, 100,000 hours. So as we expand into these technologies, we're expanding that life cycle even beyond the already impressive life cycle that we've seen. And hopefully this has helped to improve your confidence in working with All-C, that we're someone that has a focus on some of these important aspects on a longer term footing and on a more global stage.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Cameron. As Cameron mentioned, we've kind of taken up most of the hour. I still want to give the opportunity for any questions that anybody has. This can be directed towards us, All-C. Obviously, I can answer questions, Cameron can answer questions. Bolly's still on the call, even though he's just about to give a panel talk at Ox Tech Week. So yeah, any questions anybody has, and also for Ian as well. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to obviously drop him an email, or get in touch that way, or use this as an opportunity. So any questions anybody's got, please feel free to either unmute yourself, put it in the chat. So we'll hang around for a few more minutes just to answer any questions anybody's got.
I think one thing to emphasize as well is, as you have these requirements, please feel free to reach out to your account manager or myself or Tom or Bolly. If you need help and you feel like potentially maybe there's something that we're not addressing, maybe something that you don't have the certification and that's not allowing me to apply for certain types of tenders in certain industries, we may not be aware of that. And when it comes down to the market knowledge, it comes from you. We don't know what we don't know. So that it's you that can help us.
Thank you guys for the on the chat. Yeah, more than welcome, and really appreciate everyone's time today. Really do. Obviously, in terms of any questions anybody's got, it's hard to anticipate questions from future projects. It's always a case by case thing. But just on Cameron's point in terms of certification, if a project you're working on requires any certification or you need any assistance kind of completing any tender documents, please do get in touch with us. We're more than happy to help, and chances are we've got the certification in place. We just don't have it publicly accessible on the website, for example. So if anyone does have any questions, please feel free to drop an email to the one on screen now, webinar@allc-tech.com. give us a call either on our UK office or our EU office, or obviously get in touch with your account manager. Because as I say, these questions are going to be difficult to anticipate. But yeah, I really just want to say thank you everyone for attending today's session. Really appreciate it. If anyone has any suggestions of topics to cover in any future webinars, please do let us know. Just like with everything really, with our product design, with our company direction, we're very much dictated by what our partners want and need. So if anyone has any suggestions for future webinars, please let us know. And again, if anyone's got any questions surrounding sustainability, any CSR related topics at all, please do reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. Yeah, thanks guys. We appreciate yeah, no problem, Ian. Thank you again for saying a few words. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, guys.
Thanks to everyone for attending.
Bye-bye.